Hello and welcome to the Cup That Cheers. I'm Elizabeth and today we're doing something a little bit different. We're not sewing, we're doing some historic cooking. If you don't happen to know, I'm a history nerd for a lot of different areas of history, including food history. This particular recipe that we are going to be talking about today is cherry bounce or cherry brandy. I actually started this jar of cherries and brandy over a year ago at cherry season in 2019 and then forgot about it. So this is also going to be a bit of an experiment today to see whether or not cherries, having spent a year in brandy, are still edible. We'll see. Or drinkable. If the brandy is totally ruined, then I guess we'll learn something today. But I started out last year with a couple of different recipes. One is this one from Maria Rundell's book, A New System of Domestic Cookery, published in 1807. And it's called Cherries in Brandy. And it's very simple. Weigh the finest morellas. Morello cherries are a sour cherry. Having cut off half the stalk, prick them with a new needle and drop them into a jar or wide-mouthed bottle. Pound 3/4 the weight of sugar or white candy, strew over, fill up with brandy, and tie a bladder over. This recipe doesn't say how long to let it sit before decanting the brandy off of the cherries and using the cherries and using the brandy. So I'm really hoping that it can be an indefinite kind of thing, because that's kind of how it is. The other recipe that I was working with was this one from The Country Housewife and Ladies Director by Richard Bradley, or I think maybe Robert Bradley, can't remember the author's first name. That was published in 1728, and it's called Black Cherry Brandy. And it says, the way of making black cherry brandy is only to pick the cherries from the stalks and put them whole into the brandy, about a pound of cherries to a quart. This may remain for about a month before it is fit to drink, and then the brandy may be poured from the cherries. And then he has other instructions about what you can do with the cherries after that month. You can put them into another jar and distill them. You can put them into some ale and flavor the ale with them. You can put more brandy on top of them and flavor the other brandy. I'm not going to do all of that. Between the two recipes is essentially what I did back in 2019. I got some cherries. Now, in California where I live, sour cherries are not really available. They're not available fresh, and they're even really difficult to find frozen. You can find them canned sometimes. So I used sweet dark cherries because that's what was available. I took the stalks off of them. I don't remember pitting them. So I think I did leave them whole and poke a hole in each cherry with a needle to let the juice come out and to let the brandy and sugar go in. And then just put them in the jar, covered them with brandy. I remember running out of brandy and having to use some rum also. So we'll see. Hopefully the combination of the two flavors is not disgusting, but that's the only kind of spirit that I had. And I also put some sugar in. I did about the proportion of the black cherry brandy recipe. Used white sugar, did a layer of cherries, sprinkle with sugar, layer of cherries, sprinkle with sugar, all the way up to about 3/4 full of the jar, and then shook the jar. And there's still some sugar on the bottom of the jar that has not completely dissolved even after all of this time. And then I stuck it in the back of a cupboard and promptly forgot about it. So here we are. It is now past cherry season in 2020. I'm not able to get any fresh cherries to demonstrate with another batch of cherries what I did, so I'm just going to have to just describe it. And what I remember, of course, about working with cherries, I've made cherry jam before, I do that quite often, is that if you're going to do this at home, you need to make sure that you protect your work surface. You wear dark clothes, you wear an apron when you're working with cherries, because dark cherries have very dark juice and it stains like crazy. And the stain, even on your tabletop, even on your sink, it is difficult to get out of things. It will also stain your hands. So just FYI if you're going to do this. But this is a pretty simple thing to do, just infusing a kind of spirited liquor, brandy or rum, with fruit and sugar. Just soak it in there, let the flavor go into the liquid, and then strain it off. And hopefully the idea is that you have brandied cherries or rum-soaked cherries, in this case both, that you can then use as an ingredient in something else. I could imagine that you could dry them out, chop them up, and put them in a cake. And then you also have this flavored liquor. One thing I read about when I was doing research and trying to find the original recipes again that I had used was a mention of a liquor called Ratafia. Sometimes it's also pronounced Ratafia. And that is usually, according to the context of the recipes that I see it in, that is usually an almond flavored liqueur or brandy or something. I found a reference to Ratafia in a different recipe. I'll have to put the link to that in the description below. That defined Ratafia simply as a liqueur that had a fruit soaking in it, a fruit infused liqueur. A lot of the recipes using cherries instruct you to leave the cherry kernels or the cherry pits in the recipe. Sometimes it says that you're supposed to remove the pits and crack them and then put them back into the liqueur or the jam if you're making cherry jam or whatever it is that you're making. And that is because cherries and almonds, the plants, cherry trees and almond trees, are related. And a cherry kernel has an almond-esque flavor. So they'll do the same thing with peaches and with apricots. All stone fruits are related to almonds botanically. And so the kernel, the little seed inside the pit of a peach or inside the pit of an apricot or inside the seed of a cherry, those all have an almond flavor. And so I'm assuming that's how you got artificial almond flavoring back in the 19th century and earlier. I did not do that. I did not crack the pits because I'm allergic to almonds and I didn't want to have any kind of allergic reaction for myself. All right, so I've just got a bowl with a strainer in it. And just FYI, once you try to open a jar that's had sugar in it, the lid sticks. So run the lid under hot water until the sugar softens enough that you can open it. All right, so I think what I'm gonna do first is try to spoon some of the cherries out. And surprisingly, they're still dark. I was not sure that they would be. And the cherries are floating, so I might be able to just pour very carefully. This is almost a full bowl of juice. So what I'm gonna do is transfer, hopefully, this to a jar or something that I can pour from. All right, so I've transferred some of the brandy from the cherries into this pitcher, and I'll go ahead and strain the rest of it off later. I'm ready to transfer the cherry brandy into these clean bottles. I have a funnel, and let's see how this goes. Okay, I think I'm gonna need some more bottles. All right, so we've strained the cherries out of the mixture of brandy and rum and sugar. And now I'm going to taste it. Now, when a 19th century or 18th century recipe talks about a wine glass of something, take a wine glass of cherry brandy to flavor your cake or whatever it is. They're not talking about a modern size wine glass. They're talking about one that's this big. This is an antique wine glass that I inherited from my great-grandparents. So I'm going to use it to taste some of the cherry brandy or cherry bounce. All right. So here it is. It's very strong of brandy and rum. I don't actually taste very much cherry, sadly. It's very sweet. It's not quite syrupy, but it's sweet enough that I would probably use it as an ingredient in something else rather than drink it straight. But I can see how it would be really a tasty thing, especially chilled. I would think chilled and added to another chilled beverage. Let me try the cherries. Now the cherries themselves, I think I did poke them with a needle, like that one recipe said, because they are very soft and there's a bit of a hole in them. Break one open for you. It is very dark all the way through, and it's a reddish brown color, not the dark red, purplish red that the cherries started out as. Strangely enough, the cherries also don't really taste like cherries. They taste like brandy and sugar with about the texture of a maraschino cherry, which is really interesting. I can see them being sort of dried in an oven and chopped up and used like candied fruit in a cake or as a garnish on something. Not really to give a cherry flavor to anything. That's really surprising that neither the cherries nor the cherry bounce actually taste like cherries. So I hope this was an interesting project for you as well. I'm glad to get this large jar out of my fridge, but now I'm going to have to find a place for the small bottles of cherry brandy and the jars of the cherries. They'll probably be shelf stable. I have a feeling they have enough alcohol in them to be pretty shelf stable for a long time. But let me know in the comments below if you have tried making any kind of infused wine or liquor. Please make sure to give this video a like if you've liked the content. I have some more historical cooking recipes coming up. There's a bunch of recipes I've been wanting to make, and a bunch of recipes I've already made that people have asked me to record so they can see how everything goes together instead of just read it on my blog. Speaking of my blog, I have a blog that is called The Cup That Cheers, where I have written about some of these other historic recipes that I've made. So if you'd like to read about it and check it out, go ahead and go to The Cup That Cheers. There are a lot more posts there than there are videos on this channel. So if you would like to check that out, go ahead. Please subscribe to the channel, give the video a like if you've liked it and you would like to see more, and everyone take care. Bye.